Good morning, everyone. I can't hear you. Good morning. So, welcome, Excellencies, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and online guests. Welcome to our symposium, Future-Proofing Unified Action for Soil Health and Food Security. I am Marina Diboma, Program Director of TwoSkill, and I'm honored and pleased to be your moderator today. As we gather here, we face a monumental challenge. By 2050, our planet will be home to nearly 10 billion people. This stark reality underscores the urgency of our mission today, to push for innovations and resources that will ensure global food security for everyone, regardless of where they live, while securing a sustainable future for our planet. This symposium is not just a celebration of IFDC 50th anniversary, it's a call to action. We are here to ask ourselves, what can we do following the African Union's Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit in Nairobi? We've seen an outpouring of support from government organizations, the private sector, international development partners for the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Action Plan. So today we aim to capture that enthusiasm, sustain the momentum, and explore concrete ideas as the African Union mobilizes resources and communicates its next steps to a global audience. Never in IFDC's 50-year history has there been a moment like this. The interconnected pressures of climate events, human conflicts, and global pandemics have highlighted the critical importance of food security. Now it's time for bold action to transform soil health, eradicate hunger and poverty, while preserving biodiversity and restoring cultivated lands. What can we expect today? This symposium begins with leaders and experts from around the world addressing these critical challenges. You will hear about their work, about the initiative from the Netherlands, from Norway. Later on this afternoon, we will have working group, but I will come back to that. As we embark on this crucial journey, I encourage you to share your thoughts, insights, highlights of the day on your social media by using the hashtag Soy4Food. I think you can see that on the screen over there. Soy4Foods, whether you're here with us in person or joining us virtually, it's important to amplify this vital conversation and work together towards healthier soils, more nutritious plants, and more prosperous people on a food-secure, thriving planet. But before we get to serious business, I am wondering, who came here this morning alone? Can you just please raise your hand? Okay. Who knows at least one person in this room? All right. May I please invite you to stand up? Everyone, please. And I think we are also here because it's important to network, to interact, to establish possible future collaboration, and I will not be a good moderator if I do not facilitate that. So I would like to give you 30 seconds for you to introduce yourself to your neighbor, to your left, your right, and behind. Up we go. Well done. Well, well done. My mic is not on. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. You may sit down again. No, they're making my life difficult. Thank you very much. Well done, everyone. You are already into that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now let's start with serious matters. Let's begin our day of collaboration and innovation. And I'm excited to introduce our first speaker. With over 3 decades of experience in agricultural development, he has been a driving force in promoting soil health as a cornerstone of sustainable agriculture and climate change mitigation. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Henk van Duijn, President and CEO of IFDC. Please give him a big hand.
Good morning, everybody. Marina already started with what we're trying to do today, and that's exactly interact with each other. As President and CEO, I'm pleased to see that many people in room, but also those who are online, because as a global organization and as a global topic, food security can't be addressed only here in Amsterdam. So I'm very pleased that quite a number of our joint development partners are online, but we also have joint development partners here in the room, and we will talk about it, because in the end, that's what it's all about. And I'm pleased, if I look at the leadership panel, that we have representation of the African Union, which will bring us, and Dr. Bahiigwa will bring us, the latest updates from what happened last week in Harare. And that's relevant for all of us, because we, as we are here, take the continent serious. And food security on the African continent is key. Key for Africa, but key for us globally. And I know I will not say anything about politics, not about the Netherlands, not about the US, or Africa. But we all know that food sovereignty on the continent is crucial. And not only food sovereignty. If we look at fertilizer or soil health, it are key elements to assure that in the coming decades, we are able to feed all those in Africa and around the world. And that's exactly why we are here today. This is in a context of a different number of events, which we started celebrating our 50th anniversary. We had a similar event in Washington in June. And of course, we started with the Africa Fertilizer Soil Health Summit in May in Nairobi. While the previous one was in 2006, now we had a major event on fertilizer and soil health in Nairobi in May, addressing the importance of fertilizer nutrient use efficiency in a much broader context, being soil health or the dynamics of soils, but also in a climate setting. And we all know the amount of degraded soils is becoming a major threat for all of us. Not only here in the Netherlands or in America, but especially in Africa. And if we are able to reduce the degraded soils and ensure that there is more nutrient use efficiency, we're also able to produce more food on the continent. So I'm very pleased that we have this opportunity today in different breakout groups with everybody online and here in the room, not only to celebrate IFDC's 50th, but most important, to find solutions to address the challenges we are facing in the coming decade. So once again, my name is Henk van Duijn. I'm pleased to see you all, and I wish you a very inspiring, but like Marina already started, engaging and empowering meeting today to learn from each other, because the only way forward to address this topic is to do it together. Doesn't matter in which domain you're operating, which institution you're operating, if you're private sector, government, development partners, universities, farmers, entrepreneurs, we all need to work together to assure that we feed the continent. I wish you all a very pleasant day, and thank you for coming. Thank you for those online, and I hand over to Marina. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Henk, for these insightful welcome remarks. Next, I'm honored to welcome the following speaker for a keynote address. He has been instrumental in shaping agricultural policies across Africa, and he's a leading voice in promoting food security on the continent. Please welcome Dr. Godfrey Bahiigwa, Director of the Department of Rural Economy and Agriculture at the African Union Commission. Dr. Bahiigwa, the floor is yours. Please give him a big hand.
Yeah, thank you, Marina. As introduced, my name is Godfrey Bahiigwa. I'm the Director of Agriculture and Rural Development at the African Union Commission. Let me start by thanking IFDC for inviting the African Union to be part of this symposium. I was also in Washington, D.C. last year for the first one. No, it was this year, right? Yes, to share some thoughts on what is happening on the continent. I also wish to thank IFDC for the strong partnership with the African Union, not just leading to the preparations for the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Summit in May, that took place in May this year, but also for the continued support and partnership to be able to stimulate implementation of the Nairobi Declaration, as well as the Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health Action Plan, 10-year action plan. So in this short period that I have with you, basically I wanted to share with you what Africa is thinking to address, basically in a broad sense, agri-food systems transformation on the continent over the next 10 years to achieve multiple objectives, including food and nutrition security, but also creating millions of jobs for our youth and women, as well as marginalized groups. Some of the statistics that on the continent, many of you are aware, at the moment, the UN, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organizations, FAO, estimates around 280 million Africans are food insecure. That is roughly 20% of the population. That should not be the case in the 21st century on the continent. So that is factoid number one. Factoid number two is that Africa is still a net food importer of food. Roughly 50 billion US dollars a year. That is a lot of money to be spent supporting the livelihoods of other people outside the continent. Not that the continent does not want to trade. We want to be able to trade, but some of that money ought to be spent on the continent improving the livelihoods of our farmers on the continent. So keep trade happening, but in a more balanced manner so that we can create jobs for our youth. So those two big facts, 20% hungry people on the continent, but also overdependence on food imports, are some of the factors that have motivated the continent to rethink our strategy over the next 10 years. So looking ahead, we observe several drivers that are going to shape Africa's food systems for the next 10 years. We have observed increased economic growth across the continent, hovering around 3 to 4% per year for the last 2 decades, which is a positive thing. That means incomes are rising on the continent, the middle class is growing on the continent, which means increased consumption and demand for food, and especially animal source products. We are also observing an emerging medium and large-scale farms on the continent, creating opportunities for small-scale farmers to link to those medium and large-scale farmers. We are observing rapid urbanization across the continent, the growth of towns, which means you have a growing number of consumers that do not depend on the primary products produced at the farm, but are consuming agro-industrialized products on the continent. We are also seeing a rise in the processing sector, agro-processing, especially by cottage industries, whether it is turning oranges into a juice, passion fruits into a juice. We are seeing that growing across the continent, and we hope that trend will continue and turn into larger scale agro-processing industries. And as I said, as incomes are rising, we are observing an increasing demand for animal source products, higher protein. But also we see increasing application of digital technology in Africa's agriculture. So these are the trends that we're observing that are either ongoing or emerging across the continent, and we believe will be shaping agri-food systems transformation over the next 10 years. So given the challenges we face, but also these emerging trends, the African Union has led the development of a 10-year strategy and action plan. It is called the CAADP. CAADP is Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, which our heads of state and government adopted 20 years ago. Actually, we are celebrating 20 years of CAADP on the continent, which has been the continental policy framework guiding agricultural transformation on the continent consistently for 20 years. And we are proud as a continent to have one consistent policy program that drives our investments. The current version of CAADP under the Malabo Declaration. So the first declaration on this continental policy framework was adopted in 2003 in Maputo, Mozambique, implemented for 10 years and renewed in 2014 in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea. That declaration will end next year, 2025. And ahead of time, we decided to design the successor, so called it CAADP 3.0, that will run from 2026 to 2035, with 6 objectives that are aimed at supporting the transformation of food systems on the continent, again to achieve those high-level objectives: food security and nutrition, millions of jobs for our youth, increased intra-Africa trade, and building resilient agri-food systems. The 6 objectives are: 1, to intensify sustainable food production, agro-industrialization, and trade. Second is to boost investment and financing in transforming agri-food systems by both the public and private sector. Some of you may know one of the traditional targets on the continent has been to increase financing of public expenditure in agriculture by 10%. Never mind how many countries have met that, but it has been an aspiration of our continent to increase financing into Africa's agriculture systems. Third is about ensuring food and nutrition security across the continent to be able to address the first constraint I talked about, making sure that the 280 million Africans do not go hungry every night. The third objective is advancing inclusivity and equitable livelihoods, focusing on youth, women, and marginalized groups in the various agri-food systems value chains. The fifth objective is to build resilient agri-food systems that can withstand, adapt to various shocks and stressors. Some of those shocks may be systemic within the continent. Some of them may be geopolitical, like the Russia-Ukraine conflict, whose effects I'm sure you are very familiar with, but also some of the conflicts that are taking place in several of our member states. The sixth and last objective is strengthen agri-food systems governance to improve the quality of implementation. Quite often on the continent, we have very good strategies, both at continental and national level, but sometimes the quality of implementation is not strong enough. So in this strategy, we are saying we need to improve not only political leadership at country level, but also to improve the quality of implementation, especially through improved agri-food systems governance. Lastly, in the remaining time, I just wanted to say this, that over the next 10 years, we have made a conscious decision to move away from an agriculture-led development strategy to an agri-food systems-led development approach, from agriculture to agri-food systems, informed by our conviction that to transform agriculture is not the responsibility of the Ministry of Agriculture per se. Multiple players, different government ministries and agencies have a role to play. And so as we move from Malabo Declaration to the Kampala Declaration, I should mention that the next CAADP Declaration will be adopted in January next year in Kampala, Uganda. So we'll move from Malabo to Kampala. But as we do so, we are also moving from agriculture-led to agri-food systems. What that means is different government ministries and agencies in our member states have to work together towards a common goal, each one playing their mandate, but all coming together to transform our food systems to be able to achieve those multiple objectives. We are not lost on the fact that it is not easy to bring together different government agencies. So one of the lessons that we'll be looking forward to in the various discussions and platforms as we interact globally is to get lessons on what it takes to have efficient multi-ministry, multi-agency coordination in order to improve the quality of implementation to get the outcomes that we desire on the African continent. Thank you for the opportunity to come and share these thoughts and aspirations of the continent over the next 10 years. And I look forward to providing some more details in the panel where I will share about the outcomes on the discussions we had in Harare last week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Godfrey. You already said it. We'll dive deeper on this perspective during the leadership panel. Our next keynote speaker has been a key figure in shaping the Netherlands' international development policies, with a particular focus on food security and sustainable agriculture. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Stephen Collet, Deputy Director General of the International Cooperation Department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Please give him a big hand.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here. And let me just start by congratulating the IFDC with its 50th anniversary. I celebrated my own birthday just a few days ago. Don't start singing now, but it's just to mention that it's a bit over 50, but my mom came with a few pictures of the very birth date. And the very birth date is always a very happy moment where there's a lot of optimism and excitement in the room. And 50 years, or a bit more in my case, down the line, that excitement and optimism is still there, but has more maturity around it, one could say. More competences, more experience, more realism, and maybe also a bit of responsibility. And I think that also goes for the center. And I think it's very timely to have a center which is mature, responsible, and real. Well, the past 5 decades, the IFDC has effectively served the waves of what I would call ever further global integration. Integration of markets, integration of governance, integration of society at multi-stakeholder level. Now today, one sometimes might get the feeling that global integration is slowly but steadily coming to a halt, or at least is hampering. One could argue that this time is a time of fragmentation. Fragmentation on the political front, fragmentation on the economic front. And as Marina mentioned, some label this time also a time of what you could say polycrisis. So crisis of climate, of insecurity, conflict, inequality, and displacement. And those crises seem to be mutually reinforcing. We are far off from zero hunger. With 800 million people food insecure in Africa, 1 out of 5 undernourished, with inflation and high food prices really bothering every corner of the world, be it in Africa, be it in the West. As Henk mentioned, inflation, food prices, food insecurity is very fundamental to everyone's lives, to the politics of today, the politics also in the Netherlands. At the same time, the potential is enormous. The potential, as Godfrey from the African Union Commission, is enormous in terms of population, young workforce, digitization. So there is a double-edged challenge for us now. And I think in this time and this age is very reassuring for the Dutch government to have a partner that is mature and responsible. Food security has been, and it will continue to be, a priority for our government in international cooperation. And why is that so? I think first and foremost, this is because we are very far off zero hunger. We still have a lot of work to do. We have committed ourselves to a lot of work, which we are doing and which we need to continue to do and which we need to expedite, do better. Now, secondly, there's also an issue of self-interest. I think the risk of further instability and displacement and the opportunity of increased prosperity, as the Dutch are a trading nation, and not only traders but also investors, leaving a lot of value behind in Africa and adding a lot of value in Africa, is also a self-interest. And I think also, one could say, we have a bit of a comparative advantage. You should also be careful, always be careful with that. Of course, we have our agencies, institutions under this roof, Wageningen University, with a lot of knowledge and experience, but also, I should say, with a lot of lessons learned. Because let's be humble, and I think Henk alluded to that in a very diplomatic manner, we also have our challenges in the Netherlands. If we talk about soil, if we talk about nitrogen, if we talk about the politics around it, I think the challenge is enormous also here. And I think that that reflection is very important in this time and day, that we are not thinking that we know how to bring healthy soils abroad if we are still challenged by the same question at home. But that challenge in itself and the mutual challenge we have is, I think, a source and a platform for cooperation. Now, we have been partners almost from the beginning. And I see Professor Rudy Rabbinge here in front row, and that's where you should be, Professor. Rudy was our minister's advisor, has been our minister's advisor for a long time on food security. And I think you helped us realize that there is no food security without healthy soils. And And for healthy soils, you need to be able to connect science, technology, policy, markets, and practice. And that's exactly what IFDC does and has been doing for 50 years. Ladies and gentlemen, this time and age of insecurity and fragmentation requires, in my view, 3 competences: the ability to adapt, to integrate, and to localize. And IFDC has developed them all. Let me name and close with a case in point, and that's the Soil Values Program. We're very proud to partner with IFDC, SNV, and the Wageningen University and Research Center in a very fresh partnership with a 10-year horizon, 100 million euro commitment from our end, which is a long-term investment, because we do not believe in quick fixes on soil fertility. And I think there, the ability to localize is very clear, because the leadership of ECOWAS has been and will be and continues to be essential. It's a local leadership of local government which we require in order to get stuff done. And of course, this is all in the context of what our director from the African Union Commission mentioned, this commitment which is Pan-African. Secondly, if we talk about integration, what we do with this program is actually consider it as an integrator, a specialist, if you like, on soil fertility, on healthy soils, which we actually put into the broader World Bank Food Systems Resilience Program. So we enrich and embolden, if you like, that program, because as we know, a food systems approach without a healthy soils approach will not do the trick or will not work enough. So that's the integrated. So localize, integrate, and then adapt. Adapt meaning a 10-year horizon, but constantly adapt to changing circumstances. And of course, the key here is climate change, and we will need to adapt this program time over time again in order to get the right policies in place, in order to attract the right level of investment, including private investment. So we are very proud to have this program and to have this partnership. And we see it as a case in point of the 3 abilities which we require in this time and age: to adapt, to integrate, and to localize. And we are confident, therefore, that with these abilities in place, the center will have a bright future for the time to come. Thank you very much.